Good afternoon, Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, and thank you for allowing the Manila Times to talk to you about this very important and very timely topic about the vaccine for COVID-19. Before we start, Mr. Dmitriev, could you tell us something about the Russian Direct Investment Fund and its role in the development of vaccine for those in the Philippines who are not familiar with the Russian system?
Sure. So Russian Direct Investment Fund is a sovereign wealth fund of Russia, and we are making investments in different sectors of the Russian economy, mostly with top Western partners. And we already invested more than $20 billion in different sectors of the Russian economy, and our partners are the largest sovereign wealth funds of the world. And we, from day one, focused very much on fighting COVID. So our first investment was in a testing system that allowed us to basically test for COVID very quickly in 30 minutes. And we did it in partnership with Japan. And basically it's a test for COVID that is very high accuracy and quick, because some quick tests are not high accuracy and some accurate tests are too long. So now we were able to sell more than 13 million of those tests throughout the world outside of Russia. And we are using it, for example, in Russian all Moscow airports to test people for COVID within 1 hour. So that's an example of a successful investment in testing. We also invested in a drug, that's antiviral drug, that also showed great results and was approved in Russia. And later on, we sold this drug to 15 other countries. It's called Avifavir, and it's a drug that fights COVID if you take it at early stages or middle stages of the disease. It's one of the two top antiviral drugs in the world. And then we are also investing in vaccine production in Russia and outside of Russia. So we've been working very closely with Gamaleya Institute, which developed this vaccine. We first looked at around 25 different vaccine candidates from Russia, from other countries, and we decided to focus on investing in production of Gamaleya vaccine because we understood that they use a proven safe technology. And I can go now into a little bit about it if it's interesting for you, but we looked at lots of candidates. So why did we choose it?
Yes, sir. And then how did it evolve so quickly as you mentioned earlier?
Sure. So we basically saw that Gamaleya Institute has great head start before other companies, other nations, because of their work on Ebola vaccine and because of their work on MERS vaccine. And coronavirus just happened to be very close to MERS vaccine. Yes. And they had MERS vaccine already tested on thousands of people, already basically ready to be approved. So when coronavirus came along, they used the same delivery platform they used for Ebola vaccine. They used the same delivery platform that they used for MERS vaccine. It's called human adenoviral vector. And I will explain it very simple in a second. And then they were able to very quickly do the same delivery approach for coronavirus. So we benefited from Russia having long history of being great on vaccines. You know, Catherine the Great was vaccinated in 1762. Masha, please check the date. 30 years before the first vaccine was available in the US. And Soviet Union has been very strong on the vaccines. So we have lots of vaccine capability, but specifically for this, we also were at the right place, at the right time by having this MERS work.
Right. So in other words, the work did not just start recently. This has been a continuation of the previous research that had been going on for Ebola and MERS. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. And the advantage we have is human adenovirus, and I will try to explain it very simply. So vaccine has just two components. It's a delivery mechanism that needs to basically deliver spike of coronavirus, not the whole coronavirus mostly, just a spike of coronavirus to the cell. And the spike of coronavirus to the cell, pretty much everybody uses about the same approach. So the biggest question is about delivery mechanism. How do you deliver the spike of coronavirus? And what Russia scientists are using, they basically have human adenovirus which is light flu virus that has been with humans for hundreds, thousands of years. And they make it so it cannot replicate. They make it weak, and they use it to deliver the spike of coronavirus. And the advantage versus other approaches is that mRNA that some other countries are using has never been approved ever in the world as delivery mechanism, has never been proven that it's safe long term. Monkey adenovirus, because not many people get monkey adenovirus. It's a new thing. Has not been tested before. We don't know long-term consequences of it. So this is the advantage, is using human proven technology, advantage number one. And advantage number two, and it's a bit complicated, so maybe simplify it a little bit, but what we saw is that one shot is not enough. You need 2 shots. But if you need 2 shots, you need to change your delivery vector for a second shot. Because if you do the same shots with 2 vectors, your body starts to learn to attack your delivery mechanism with the first shot. So then it also attacks the second shot. And this is a unique feature of Russian vaccine. We have vector number 5, and then we use vector number 26. So human adenovirus, 2 shots, 2 different vectors. Final point.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and final point on science that's important. So, for example, CanSino, the Chinese company, basically uses vector. We have 5 and 26. CanSino uses vector number 5. They don't have 26. They're already using it for Chinese military. Johnson & Johnson, American company, received $1 billion contract from the US, 100 million doses for vector number 26, which we have, but they don't have vector 5. And only we have 5 and 26. And we believe when you combine 5 and 26, it provides longer term immunity, and it's safe because it's been studied for a very long time. Adenoviral vectors is the safest delivery platform. So sorry, it's a bit complicated, but maybe you can do it in a more simple fashion. But to summarize, proven platform on Ebola and MERS, using human virus to deliver spike, not deliver the whole coronavirus, just spike. So spike is safe and delivery platform is safe. And changing vectors, which only we have.
Maybe if you can clarify for us or correct our information, what we've read is that the Sputnik vaccine finished phase 2 trial. Is that correct? And then has the information or the data from phase 2 been published already, or will it come out soon?
So information about phase 1, phase 2 animal trials will be published this month in August. But already we sent this information to our ambassador, Russian ambassador, who is doing very good job, good work representing Russia and working very closely with Philippines. So we already sent the data to our ambassador, and he is going to share it with Philippine Health Ministry and Philippines authorities. And I wanted to touch a little bit on Philippines. So Philippines is a great partner for Russia. We really want to work very closely with Philippines. We see a very positive response from your president. And we, of course, want to be partners with Philippines and want your own health ministry to confirm that everything is safe and everything is perfect. So in that regard, we want to have clinical trials also in Philippines. We will have big one in Russia, we will have in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, but we want to have clinical trials of maybe up to 1,000 people in Philippines. We can start this clinical trial already in August, based on the approval from your health ministry. Maybe it moves to September, but Russia is willing to start in August so that your scientists and your people can really see vaccine in action. And we believe that given the pandemic that is happening out there, when you have a safe technology, and we know it's safe because of previous work on MERS, because human adenovirus has proven to be safe in studies over the last 20 years. That's very important, unlike some of the novel approaches. When you have a proven technology like this, it's actually important to start using it in a safe, controlled manner. because we have lots of attacks organized by lots of media groups on Russia. But we want to see what they say in 6 months, when everybody will see that Russian vaccine is safe. But because of political reasons, because of political restrictions, they didn't, work with us on it for the last 6 months.
Mhm.
So we believe this is another important point on politics, that we believe that politics, and we said, should be not used in COVID. We really need to unite all of our efforts in fight against this COVID disease that is horrible. So we want to unite efforts of Russia, Philippines, other nations, work together. We are happy that there are some other vaccines that hopefully will work. The world needs several vaccines, and this can be a really collaborative effort. So we ask not to politicize vaccines, not to have vaccines race. It's very important that we work together, and I think Russia and Philippines can show an example for how we can work together, do clinical trials, phase 3 in Philippines. Your scientists will see the technology, will see how it works. And this is a very important collaborative approach.
Thank you, sir. Can you share? You said that the information for phase two was already shared to your ambassadors, but maybe if you can give us like maybe a peek
Yeah,
at some
preview,
of
yeah.
the maybe the number of the population that was included in phase two. What were the efficacy rate, and were they randomized, or were the participants randomly selected? Just basic info.
Yeah, so I would say phase 2, we followed all of the necessary procedures. Let's start even before phase 2. So we did animal trials, and Russia is the Gamaleya Institute is the only institute in the world that has what's called lethal model on animals. So we have animals that actually die from COVID, and when those animals received vaccine, 100% of them were protected. And we tried the vaccine on many types of animals, and Russia has a big depository of animals for lab testing. So this was in the beginning. Then phase 1 and 2, again, what we can confirm is that there were no significant side effects. 100% of people developed very high level of antibodies. And we also have a proprietary test that tests the most effective antibodies. They're the antibodies that attack the spike of coronavirus. So we showed that all of the people developed a very large quantity of those antibodies. And we also showed that 2 shots are needed, because after the first shot, people get to a level of a person who had COVID. But after the second shot, you get to a level of antibodies higher than people who had COVID. So then your immunity response lasts for much longer. So basically, all of this has been validated. And it's important that, this approach of adenovirus vectors has been used in Russia and proven to be safe, and in the rest of the world safe. And this is one. CanSino uses number 5. Johnson & Johnson uses number 26 over the last 20 years. So we choose a proven delivery mechanism. So we also, of course, confirm that there were tens of thousands of people over the last 20 years on whom adenovirus human vector has been tested, and it showed no long-term effects, no fertility effects, absolutely safe and secure. And this is what's missing in some of the Western press. That, for example, US, many companies, they chose mRNA, never tested long-term, never approved before, new technology. So of course they need to test it on a large number of people. As far as we are concerned, they need to test it for the next 20 years before it's approved, just as we tested adenovirus vector. So this will be apples to apples comparison.
Comparison, it's not the same. So, sir, so 2 parts for this question. So, how many people were involved in phase 2, and how many people are you looking at for phase 3 to participate?
So, phase 2, there were around 100 people involved. Phase 1 and 2 all together. Phase 3, we will have in Russia and will also start vaccinating some of our people. So basically, as part of phase 3 and vaccination of our people, we will already vaccinate, basically tens of thousands of people already in August and in the beginning of September. So by September, Russian vaccine will have the highest number of people vaccinated with Russian vaccine than any other vaccine that is out there in the world.
What's the target number, sir?
So the target number is basically, we believe that we can have, let's put this number. So we expect to have basically 40,000 people vaccinated by mid-September.
And then when I'm not a medical person, so am I correct in saying that phase 3, the people that you're talking about, some of them will be injected with a vaccine and some of them will be injected with a placebo. Is that correct?
That's right, and we will use ordinary flu vaccine as a placebo, because we believe it's not fair not to give people anything.
Right.
In Russia.
Right.
Outside, we'll follow local regulation. But in Russia, we will use our vaccine as, a test, and it will be versus flu vaccine that will be used as a comparison, because by Russian approach, we don't want people to just receive nothing because,
right.
We have some ethical issues with that.
Sir, you mentioned that you're talking already to the Philippines and that you said that there will be clinical trials in the Philippines. Is that the recommended protocol for the countries that you are working with right now? That each country that you give the vaccine to should have their own clinical trials on top of the trials that are being conducted in Russia? Is that the protocol?
No, of course not. So we believe it's sufficient to have Russian trials. They will basically be done in a way that Philippines and other countries can just accept those results.
I see.
But we believe that with countries where we have specific partnership and where we believe we can work even closer, we do this as an extra step. And basically, Philippines were open and said, we are happy to conduct clinical trials of 1,000 people, phase 3. Frankly, we are receiving lots of requests on clinical trials. So to put things in perspective, we received already requests for around 1 billion doses of vaccine. Right now, we have a capacity to produce only 500 million. We have received requests from around 20 countries to do clinical trials, but we cannot do clinical trials in all of those countries. So we would like to do in Philippines, in UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Brazil, and Russia. And this is again to make sure that we have good exposure to basically Asia, we have exposure to Middle East, and we have exposure to Latin America. So we are very strategic about how we do this, and Philippines is our great partner. And again, we really appreciate focus on fighting COVID that we see from your president. And we see that your president really follows very strong measures, and Russia wants to work jointly with Philippines to defeat COVID in Philippines. And also by you having clinical trials, also it helps Russia and Philippines together defeat COVID around the world.
Well, sir, our president said that he would volunteer to be injected with your vaccine. But I wanted to ask you, at his age, and he's I think around 70 something, does he qualify to participate in the clinical trials?
Well, I think your health ministry will decide. But this vaccine has been injected also to myself, my wife, and 2 of my parents who are 74-year-old. And my parents are molecular biologists. And my dad is actually immunologist. So they took the vaccine, knowing the science, understanding how it works. And I'll tell you also very important on response of different countries. So scientists who really understand our approach and know the track record of safety for adenoviral viruses, they acknowledge is the safest approach they see, and they are amazed by simplicity and brilliancy, because we chose safe platform, 2 vectors, not 1 vector, 2 shots, long immunity, that's the story. So because we really are focused on Philippines, and believe Philippines is a great partner of Russia. We, want to do clinical trials. We are also open to produce vaccine in Philippines, and we are seeing if there is capability to produce vaccines in Philippines. So we are really focused on, Philippines market. And then, if you don't mind, we also want to have a version of our Sputnik vaccine .com in your language, so that again, it's a sign of our respect and our appreciation of partnership with Philippines. We already have it in 7 languages, and we are adding, your language as well. So we really want to be partner of Philippines, and we want to, again, President Putin from day one said, vaccine has to be absolutely safe. Imagine, it's reputation of our Ministry of Health, it's reputation of our science. And this is why they chose the safest possible approach. Maybe not the newest, but the safest. But we want your health ministry to confirm, when knowing science, when knowing data, doing clinical trials, it's very safe. And after they confirm, I think it can become available. And this is also, I think, important news. We believe that if your health minister confirms and works well with us, we believe that the vaccine can be available in mass to Philippines in November or December of this year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, so do we understand? Is it correct what we read that in Russian law, the government allows phase 3 testing at the same time as the vaccine, or at the same time, and at the same time you make it commercially available? Is that information correct?
Yeah, that information is correct.
During pandemics, right?
Yeah, during pandemics. But again, so we have a right to do it. Now, the only reason we use this right is because we know the technology has been tested for the last 6 years and it's safe. So if we didn't have it tested on thousands of people before the delivery mechanism, if we didn't have Ebola vaccine approved on this method, we wouldn't have done it. So this is very important. You have, big pharma lobby, other people attacking this approach. But this approach makes sense when you use a proven safe platform that has already been approved before. In Philippines, do you get sometimes flu vaccination or not?
Yes, sir. We get.
So imagine, I'll give you this analogy, maybe you can use it. So every year you get flu vaccination, but every time they change it a little bit because it's a different strain of flu, right? But it doesn't mean that every time it has to go through 3 phases of approval.
I see, yes.
And this is very similar to what we had. So we had a platform already approved, already using, already safe, and we just slightly changed it. And this is benefit versus what other countries are having, because they're using approaches never approved, never studied, never done.
Sir, right now you are committing about 500 million vaccines. So, of course, the demand is so high. I mean, the reports are saying that there is a global demand for 1 billion vaccines pre-ordered by 20 countries, of course, including our country. So, sir, how can the vaccine manufacturers be able to do a steady supply of the vaccine despite the growing demand? And of course, I heard, sir, that you are planning to do the production, possible production of the vaccine here in the Philippines. So have you talked to any Philippine partner, or are there Philippine partners approaching you to collaborate on the production of the vaccine, sir?
Yeah. So first of all, you're absolutely right. There is one question on safety and efficiency of vaccine, and we believe we answered this, but we will continue, phase 3 in Philippines. But the biggest question is scaling up production. And frankly, we have capacity in Russia, mostly for the Russian market. So we already basically have agreements with 5 producers in 5 different countries who can produce for us outside of Russia. And we believe that this is important. It shows our partnership approach to producing vaccines. We mostly focused on companies who already have this big fermenting capacity, who don't need to buy any new equipment and can produce on existing equipment. We are in discussions with several companies in Philippines, but those are still early stages discussions. So we are trying to figure out, can this be produced using the existing equipment, or can additional equipment be added? So we're still at this stage, but we are looking for a partner in Philippines who already has existing equipment to produce. And so far we are in negotiations with several companies.
So, sir,
Sir, at this stage, what is the retail price that your vaccine is available to the Russian consumers? Just for us to have an idea.
Yeah, we will not, we will establish the pricing later, because now basically government pays for the vaccine, and then people receive it for free in Russia. So we are still scaling up production. We're still trying to make it as reasonable as possible. All I can say is that our pricing point will be, at the same level or even maybe lower than most other vaccines. But it's all a question of scaling. It's all a question how massively we can scale it. And we will basically be talking about pricing maybe closer to September. So that but the goal is to make it affordable. And we are not looking at it as a profit-making enterprise. We just want to cover the costs of our investments. And basically, this is not a profit-making enterprise. We'll basically use non-for-profit pricing for the vaccine.
let me just ask a follow-up on the production. So if the vaccine manufacturer here in the Philippines needs an additional equipment or additional machinery or whatever, is Russia willing to help that vaccine manufacturer in the procurement of those equipment, just so that they can produce the vaccine, sir?
Well, again, we can work jointly on this. Frankly, right now, there is a very big waiting period for new equipment. And this is one of the reasons why we are so much focused on people who already have fermenting capabilities. So I think right now it takes 6 to 9 months to procure the equipment, and then you need to install it. So basically delays rollout. So for us, the goal is, subject to approval of your health ministry, subject of approval of your government, we believe we can deliver Russian vaccines already in November, December to Philippines, and you people can get vaccinated. So to us, the priority is speed, and maybe in parallel, we can work on additional production capacity in Philippines. But for us, the key is speed. And, when we hear some political statements, etc., it's almost like people are forgetting that it's about human lives. And, I hope you didn't have people who really had very bad consequences from COVID, but I did. And it's a really human story. So I think we need not to forget about lives.
You had a relative who...
Not relative, but I had some friends who died from COVID. So basically for us, it's a very personal struggle. And we believe that this vaccine that is safe, efficient, proven, needs to be available as soon as your regulators approve it.
Right. Sir, your data, does it show that do you have to administer your Sputnik vaccine every year, just like the flu vaccine, or are you looking at a different time table for taking those vaccines? I mean, what does the data show you?
Yeah. So basically, we see that if you just have been sick with COVID, you start losing your antibodies, and you still have cell response basically in the next 4, 5, 6 months. And that's why we use 2 shots, not 1, because we want to have higher level of antibodies and for the effect to last longer. So based on some preliminary analysis our scientists have done, they believe that the approach of 2 shots may provide for good protection for 2 years, not for 1 year. But this just to be clear, this still has to be studied and proven.
Right.
And this is again why we go into longer term studies as well. So because, you know, we're still less than a year from the beginning of COVID, of course, only time will tell the length of immunity. But our scientists believe that from our vaccine, it will last 2 years.